Hello and welcome to World Canvas from International Programs at the University of Iowa. I'm Joan Kerr and we're coming to you from Film Scene in downtown Iowa City. This is part 2 of a 3-part series called The Passion That Drives Innovation. We heard from 2 young visionaries in our first segment, and now we want to delve a little further into what it takes to move an idea from inception to completion. How do you bring those ideas to life, and what support is available in our community for entrepreneurs? My guests are, to my right, Lynn Allendorf, Director of the John Papa John Entrepreneurial Center here at the University of Iowa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And to my left is Paul Kongs-Hao, founder of BlendCard here in Iowa City. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Another Dane, so I'm very happy that he's here. Lynn, we've talked about the inspiration that fuels an idea, and we've heard that it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of persistence to go from that sort of light bulb that goes off in your head to having some tangible thing that you can hold in your hand. As the director of the John Papa John Entrepreneurial Center here on campus, your job is to help these inspired young people, students usually, move to that next stage, just take that idea to someplace concrete. Can you tell us a little bit about how you approach that at the center?
Sure, absolutely. Well, we have a large academic program that serves all students at the University of Iowa. We're physically in the College of Business, but we do serve all students on campus. We have a certificate and a major in entrepreneurship. But then more interesting than that, really, we have a really engaging program to help entrepreneurial students who, while they're here at the university, are actually starting businesses. So that's pretty exciting. We have a 10,000 square foot student incubator. So that's free office space, free support, mentoring for these students to actually get businesses started while they're here on campus. Some of them are in pre-revenue stage. Some of them are actually making money. So very exciting.
Wow, yeah. How long has the center been operating?
Well, the Bedell Lab that I mentioned, the student incubator, has been around 10 years. We're actually celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. The Entrepreneurial Center has been around for over 18 years.
So being housed within the business school, obviously there are all kinds of areas within the business school that students can be studying. What students come on over to your area?
Well, actually, only about half of our students are from the College of Business. The rest are from liberal arts, engineering, dentistry, everywhere on campus.
So Blake Rupi, we just heard from, would be an example
absolutely.
of that. Yeah. So what do you see on an average, during an average semester? What kinds of ideas come forth?
We probably run into about 30 new students a semester that have concrete ideas that they're trying to move forward. So, lots of apps. Apps are very popular right now, as we saw earlier. But all kinds, from restaurants to, high-tech products using science and everything.
Yeah. Are there any examples that you could just sort of pull out of your hat?
Oh, sure. So we've been working with a team that graduated a couple years ago at Tutor Universe. They came up with an idea to do online tutoring, much like eBay is an online marketplace for merchandise. Tutor Universe is an online marketplace for tutoring services.
Wow. Terrific, yeah. And is that operating here from our region, or?
Yeah, absolutely. They're operating here out of Iowa City.
Wow, that's great. Well, I'm going to quickly turn here to Paul and ask you to tell us a little bit about your, it used to be a project, now it's actually a going concern, right? BlendCard.
BlendCard, yeah. Yeah, so I grew up in Iowa, and I moved to Phoenix, Arizona. I was out there for about 12 years, and I got a job at a startup kind of during the dot-com boom, and kind of became addicted to this idea that you could leverage technology to solve problems. And I worked for a couple companies that spent a ridiculous amount of money and never generated $1 in revenue. So I learned a lot about how not to start a startup and run a company. But then while I was there, the idea was hatched, and I started working on it on my own. Felt like I needed to bone up on the technology side of it, because I entered the technology field from a sales perspective and then evolved into a product management role, because you wear a lot of different hats in a startup, and started learning different aspects of it. And so I got a job as a product manager at GoDaddy.com, and while I was working on it, on the side, and ultimately was traveling back to Iowa from Arizona once a quarter, because I worked with a team of software developers in the Iowa offices in Cedar Rapids. And I met Mark Nolte at a networking event that I was invited to when I was back on business. And at the time I was deciding where to move and launch my company, and I was considering San Francisco and Austin, Texas. Iowa City was not at the top of mind at that moment in time, but he kind of dropped the seed that there's a lot of exciting stuff happening, and there's a growing entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so all I had to do was mention that to my wife, and then it was a done deal. We were moving back to Iowa.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. I moved back and launched it here.
Yeah, and you have found that kind of supportive community that you were looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that the first thing I did when I started considering it is talk to businesses, talk to the market that I was going to be attacking, and I realized right away that this was going to be a phenomenal test market for my product. And I have a lot of experience working with remote teams. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter so much anymore where you launch the company. So having that ability to have a test market that hadn't been inundated with every idea that every sophomore at Stanford had or whatever was a pretty, pretty compelling target market.
Well, it's probably a good time for us to describe just what BlendCard is.
Sure. So BlendCard is a small business marketing platform. And when I wanted to attack this problem of small business, effective data-driven small business marketing, what you're after is consumer data. So whenever someone explains it, they typically say, "Oh, it's a loyalty card," and it certainly includes a loyalty card component. But that wasn't where it started. We do that so that users have a reason to use it every single time that they walk into a store. And the only reason for someone to use it every time that they walk into a store is if they're earning points towards like a loyalty reward. But it holds coupons, it holds a loyalty program, and it holds gift cards to a number of different businesses on one card. So as opposed to each small business within a market launching their own program and needing to overcome the obstacle of users needing to sign up for every individual loyalty program out there, which they flat out won't do. They'll make a decision about a few to carry in their wallet. And unless your name is Starbucks or Target, you don't have deep penetration in a particular area. So what this allows us to do is a user can sign up one time and register, and then immediately they're holding a loyalty card, able to be given coupons to small businesses, and can buy and gift gift cards to a number of different places, just all loaded onto one card.
So how many businesses do you have right now represented with BlendCard?
So we've got 120 businesses right now. We're integrating with maybe another 30 businesses as we speak. And all in the eastern Iowa area. We launched in Iowa City, now have representation in about 15 different towns and cities. That at least have a few in each.
Yeah. Does it help with a card like this to be in a mid-sized community? You mentioned these other very, very large places that on the one hand may already have a lot of competitors, but also just the size you're trying to manage with partner businesses?
I would say that this size of a market and even smaller towns adjacent is the perfect place for us to prove this out and to launch. There's already an ingrained philosophy of collaboration, and these businesses, the successful ones, are already doing a number of different initiatives where they collaborate with other businesses. And at the end of the day, if they each go after their own loyalty customers, it takes an enormous amount of time to build that up, where the moment they come live on our platform, they immediately have 13, 14,000 programs that are already in the pockets and purses of existing users. And so when you collaborate with other small businesses, you're able to get access to just so many more customers than you ever would on their own. So everybody wins.
Yeah. So how do you advertise the BlendCard to an individual person in eastern Iowa?
Yeah, the primary way that we get card holders is through the small businesses that use the platform. They've got a stand at their point of sale. We have in-store collateral that they now are using to promote it inside the stores. So they pick it up at the local business, they register it, and then they see access to everybody that's using it and can go back and start redeeming deals, immediately. But we're also, trying to incorporate strategies that really allow us to get more deeply ingrained with the community. So a couple of the things that we're doing are with the Convention and Visitors Bureau, there's over 20 hotels now that are handing out a BlendCard across the counter. When people check in at the hotel, they're given a BlendCard they're directed to a website that has CVB member businesses that want to drive those visitors in, and there's a loyalty, or there's a coupon preloaded onto it. So all they need to do is check out the website, walk into the business, swipe the card, and they can be driven into these local businesses. And then the other one is events. We just finished Fry Fest, and we're have a partnership with Summer of the Arts. So when people show up to any event where drink tickets are part of their existing strategy, instead of getting a roll of paper tickets, we just load their drink tickets onto a blend card, and we're able to distribute thousands of cards in the marketplace and solve a accounting and logistics problem for events. And now people have another reason to hold it in their pocket because they'll be able to use it all summer when they come back to events.
Yeah, that sounds great. So is something that you do as the president of BlendCard or whatever, do you have to keep track of all of these various things that are happening on individual business websites? I mean, do you have to report out?
Yeah. We've created a portal for small business owners to log into that they can look at all of their data and find out how many deals have been redeemed, and then be able to identify people on the platform that are their ideal target audience, which is really what we're after is the ability to connect small businesses with their ideal target market based on data. So in addition to seeing historical data and all the things that are happening on their platform between our cardholders and the business, they're also able to take action. If somebody comes in regularly and then they haven't been in for 90 days, send them something to get them to come back in the store. If we identify their ideal users that spend a certain amount of money going out to eat, that swipe the card within a certain proximity of their store, we can go after that ideal user, send them a special deal to try to get them to come into the store.
Wow, it does sound great to me. Did you meet a lot of resistance from? I would just imagine that business owners are there's somebody walking in the door every day with a great new idea, right? Yeah. And some of them are great new ideas. How would you pitch this to somebody who said, "Oh, I've got my own rewards program. I really don't want to worry about that."
I mean, getting the first few businesses on was definitely the hardest part. People don't always want to be the first to do something. But once we got 9, 10 businesses on board, it just became increasingly, easier. And once, each of those businesses were handing out cards, once our audience grew, it just became increasingly easier to get, adoption. The hardest part was to give it away for free, to be quite honest with you. People are very, very skeptical. And even though this is the way tech companies test things, like, hey, I have an idea, I'll give it to you for free. That's an easy decision, right? Not at all. It's amazing. Like I almost feel like if at the beginning, if I would have been charging for it, it might have been easier for them to buy in. Yeah. It kind of sounded too good to be true. And so I guess that's a good problem to have, So
it's free now to any individual person. Is it also free to the businesses?
So it was. We have now completed the beta testing period, and now new businesses that come on are paying for it. As of the last few weeks. So
great, but
generating revenue is a good thing. Yeah. So we're already ahead of some of the companies that I've worked for in the past, and haven't spent nearly as much money. So
yeah, very good. Well, I know that one of the things that happens with entrepreneurs is that there's a lot of startup expense, or there can be a lot of startup expense, setting up an office, maybe renting a space, getting the right technology and all of that. So one of the things we wanted to talk about was some of the co-working environments, either on campus or in our community. I think that you have taken advantage. I don't know if it was CoLab or what, but perhaps you can talk about your experience.
Yeah, so I have been working out of the Iowa City CoLab for over a year now, and it's been phenomenal for a couple of different reasons. That's how I met Sculpt, which is a social media agency based here that has been doing all of our marketing and social media from the very beginning, and has been just critical for our launch. So being able to work out of a co-working facility where they were also based made it incredibly easy. And that just being part of a vibrant office environment before you've built your company and up enough to have that on your own is unbelievable. And I'm based out of North Liberty, and we're actually going to be part of the North Liberty collab launch imminently now. So I've been inspired by the collab. I've also been inspired by Eric Engelman from Geonetric, who has put an enormous amount of resources into building that into his company when he built his new facility in Cedar Rapids. And I think we kind of made the decision, like, we were ready to move into our own office. We were ready to start expanding, but the idea that we could make the co-working experience part of our DNA, like right from the get-go, instead of waiting until I could build a company and have my own co-working or incubator in it, being able to go into a collab facility and work along other people and hopefully mentor other people that want to start things and give back already before we're, have made it ourselves, it was kind of inspiring.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, so tell us how this co-working idea, do students gravitate to it?
Absolutely. One thing we struggled with at first when we opened our student incubator, there's 18 private offices there. None of the students were collaborating, so we figured out we had to kind of force that collaboration a little bit by bringing them all together. The problem was they were so many different majors, different schedules, so bringing them together has been hugely helpful for them. They learn from each other, they network. You heard how Paul, has met several contacts that have helped him with his business. The students are learning the same things.
Yeah. So one thing one hears all the time on this program and all kinds of other places is that starting a business is always risky, that you go into it with a full head of steam and you have a failure or a second failure, and it's very financially draining and also upsetting. How do you keep, or how do you tell someone who wants to go down that road in their career, but still a young student, what do you tell them about keeping their spirits up or getting help when they need it?
Well, right. So we try to provide the resources, and we try to reduce the risk. A new program we have is called Venture School, and it's a program based on National Science Foundation curriculum that instead of the old way we taught entrepreneurship, which was write a business plan, go raise some money, and then go develop a product, now it's before you write that business plan, you have to fully vet it. You have to talk to customers. You have to get feedback and make sure the idea that you think is an awesome idea is actually an awesome idea, and maybe it needs tweaked a little bit. So we try to put the students and entrepreneurs in Iowa through a process where they can get feedback from real customers, real potential people that would pay them money, and tweak that idea and then move forward with a much better idea than they maybe had to begin with.
And they practice elevator speeches, I suspect?
Absolutely. They practice pitching. We encourage them to talk to 100 real customers before they decide whether they have the right business nailed down or not.
Yeah. And so you mentioned that you had a couple of experiences that worked with some businesses that just kind of didn't make it at all.
Yeah.
And you said you learned a lot from that. What did you learn?
Oh boy. So I think the main thing that I learned is what she just touched on, and I think nailed, and that is there was a period in time where if you created a beautiful website, the first thing you did was put it in front of somebody with a lot of money and fund it and then go, and then you learned after the fact. Absolute wrong way to do it. And staying lean, going and getting direct customer feedback from your target market, iterating over time is absolutely critical. And so I mean that's what I did. I mean, I worked on the idea behind BlendCard, and it changed dramatically over the course of almost 5 years before I felt it was at the point that warranted raising funds and then going full time and diving into it.
Yeah. Do you expect to take this to other communities? I mean, do you think
Yeah.
this is an idea that can be imported into another community?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean the only reason you start a tech company is that you're going to build something scalable and that can expand. And I'm excited to be part of this idea that in Iowa we can build things in technology that we can export to the nation and to the world. So absolutely, I want everyone in America to have a BlendCard account. Yeah, absolutely.
And you expect to stay here in Iowa, at least for the near term? This
Absolutely,
is where you're
absolutely.
gonna
Our kids are in school, our family and friends are here, and absolutely, that's our plan.
Yeah, great. Can you talk a little bit about Iowa Innovation Associates?
Sure. So we really think innovation is not just about starting a business, but it's about being innovative in an existing company. There's a lot of big employers here in Iowa, and we want our students that leave Iowa City and aren't maybe immediately starting a business to be innovative inside those organizations, because that's how they remain competitive. So we feel like we're teaching skills that enable our students and our alums to be innovative, whether they're at starting their own business or at a big company. And I think that's critical for the economic development success of the state.
Yeah. Well, and this program comes from international programs, so I want to spend just a second talking about the very large numbers of international students who are studying lots of different subjects here at the university, but quite a large proportion study marketing and business and so on. Is there anything different about an entrepreneur who wants to sort of work on a global plane as opposed to something smaller?
Well, I think it's like Paul said, it's scalable. It's about scalability. I'm surprised he's limiting himself just to the United States. It seems kind of, yeah. So yeah, I mean, students are starting ideas based on their background experiences.
Yeah.
So it's, we certainly see ideas from international students that maybe would work better in their home countries, because that's where their background is.
Yeah. Throughout my lifetime, I've heard the term entrepreneur. One hears it in political discussions and so on, and sometimes the word seems to be sort of batted around as Main Street, as opposed to workers out there somehow or other in our political construct. But anybody can be an entrepreneur, right?
Absolutely.
The thing is to dream up the idea, to figure out what kind of support you need, whether there's a market for it, and whether you really have thought it through clearly enough to take it out and introduce it to somebody else, right? Did you dream of being a businessman when you were a kid?
No, not at all. Not at all. I was a philosophy major.
Uh-huh.
So I graduated and discovered there wasn't an enormous amount of money in philosophy. No, I think that that's right on. Anybody can be an entrepreneur, but not everyone should be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a little bit of a romanticism around becoming an entrepreneur that is very appealing, but there's a reason that, and I don't know the stat anymore, at one time it was 9 out of 10 startup companies fail or something along these lines. And there's a reason. People start something and there is no, other than Facebook or some of these others that are the fringe cases, there is no such thing as coming up with an idea and then it just blowing up with no obstacles in the way or whatever. It's going to be incredibly difficult, way harder than you could ever imagine. And if you've got that drive in addition to the idea, and then you should definitely pursue it. But it's just going to be difficult.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so I have to follow up on the philosophy thing. What from your background in philosophy has brought you to a place, sort of a better place as an entrepreneur? Is there something from that background that makes you a better businessman?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a couple of things. I mean, philosophy, I think, it's kind of funny. People laughed when I said I was a philosophy major, but you adopt and defend a position. And so I learned how to sell. I learned how to convince people that they should invest in my company. I learned how to build a solution that was defensible when I talked to small businesses. I mean, I learned an enormous amount from my background in philosophy. Secondarily, having a understanding about the world and being able to live with an enormous amount of risk, and if it doesn't scare you that if things don't work out, you might end up living in a trailer down by the river for a little while until you get your next idea, that's also helpful as well. I mean, you need to be prepared. You're never going to truly succeed unless you take risks as an entrepreneur. And that's certainly been the case with me as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, great. Well, so fun to have you both here. Paul Kongtao and Lynn Allendorf, thank you both so much. And unfortunately, this segment is coming to an end here. So thanks very much to these guests and to all of you for being with us. And I hope you can join us for part 3 of this series. The topic then will be rethinking our communities with the startup mentality. And we have 3 great guests for that program as well. World Canvas programming is available on YouTube, iTunes, UITV, and the International Programs website, which is international.uiowa.edu. And you can check out Film Scene at icfilmscene.org. I'm Joan Kerr. Thanks very much. We'll see you next time. Good night. Thanks. Oh, this is so great. Thank you. That was really fun.